So there are 5 great appetites. One is to eat, but a man can go days and days without eating. One is to drink, but a man can go days without drinking. One is to breathe, but a man can go minutes without breathing. One is to think, and a man can go seconds without thinking. And one is to imagine, and if a man stops imagining, he dies exactly then. Now the prince was walking along the shore. And since he had nothing to eat and nothing to drink, he breathed the air and he thought his thoughts and he pictured the things that he pictured, and after a time he saw before him a path, and he began to walk on the path. And the path led into a forest, and he walked along and he walked along until he found himself in the depth of a thick forest. There in the center of the forest was a clearing, and there in the center of the clearing there was a hut, and the hut was raised up on chicken legs, and this was a hut that spun. And he stood and he looked at it and he thought to himself, is this a hut that I wish to enter or not? And he decided to enter it, and as he came towards it, it stopped spinning and a door presented itself to him, and he stepped through the door and found himself inside the hut. Once inside, he found himself face to face with a Baba Yaga. Now you know the Baba Yaga. You don't know her? You can recognize her when you see her. Some people say the way to recognize her is to look at her eyes, or maybe more properly, to look at her eye. For you see, she has one eye. That eye protrudes and it droops out from its socket, so it hangs down alongside her nose. Other people say you can recognize her by the nose, for the nose, you see, is large and bulbous and heavily veined and red, and on the point of it there is a wart, and out of that wart there are growing 5 black hairs like would come out of the side of a boar. Other people say you can recognize her from the eye that she doesn't have, which is an empty socket, which seems limitless and endless and seems to suck the very air right out of the room. And still others say that the only way to recognize her is by the 2 fangs that come out of either side of her mouth. At any rate, when you see her, you will see her. And she, for her part, will be looking at you from that one eye that droops down along the side of her face. And this Baba Yaga, looking at this prince, said, "Have you come seeking a deed, or are you shirking a deed?" The prince said, well, you know what he said. The same thing you would say. The prince said, this answering of questions requires thought and imagination. And the proper order of things is that first a man should eat, and then he should drink, and only after that does he answer questions. So bring me something to eat and something to drink. And the Baba Yaga said, fine. And she brought him food and drink, and then he said, Grandmother, it is this way with me. and he told her his whole history and everything about himself, where he had come from, and whither he might be going. And she said to him, "Listen, for this is important. What you must do is go to the seashore. Once you are there, watch. 12 spoonbills will come flying in and land. When they touch the ground, they will remove the garments of feathers that they are wearing. They will become 12 lovely maidens. They will enter the water to bathe. Then you steal forward and take the garment of the eldest of the lovely maidens, and you hold that. And after you have settled accounts with her, continue until you get to the Sea King. And by the way, along your path, you will meet some companions, eater, drinker, and sharp frost. And when you meet them, continue with them and bring them with you, for they will be useful." And the youth said, "Thank you, grandmother, and farewell." And he went to the place that she had named, and he hid in the bushes by the seashore. And just as she had said, 12 spoonbills flew in on the wind. And when they touched the damp earth, the garments of feathers fell off from them, and they became 12 lovely maidens. And they entered the water, and they bathed. And the prince, as he had been told, stole forward and took the feathered garment of the eldest of the 12 maidens, and remained in the bushes then. The 12 came out. 11 of them put on the garment of feathers, and they flew off into the sky. And the 12th stood there. When she saw the prince, she implored him, "Please, give me back the garment that you have taken. If you give it to me, I will be helpful to you when you come before my father, the Sea King." And so he gave it to her. And she put it on, turned into a spoonbill, and flew off after her sisters. And the prince, finding the path, began to walk along again. Along the way, he met 3 companions. You know who they are: eater, drinker, and sharp frost. He asked them to remain with him. They agreed, and the 4 of them traveled on until they came to the place of the Sea King. When the Sea King saw the prince, he said, "Welcome, and tell me, why have you waited so long to come here? I am weary from waiting for you to arrive. But now that you are here, your tasks begin. By tomorrow morning, I want you to build a crystal bridge that spreads all across the river that runs here. If it is done, fine. If it is not done, I will have your head." Now the prince left the presence of the Sea King, and he began to weep, for he had no idea of how to accomplish this. Vasilisa, the wise, the eldest of the 12 maidens, heard his weeping, and she came, and she said to him, "Prince, why do you weep?" And he said, "What else can I do? The only thing to do is weep, for your father has ordered me to build the crystal bridge in one night. It is impossible for me to do it, and weeping is all I have left to do." The morning is wiser than the evening. And she put him to sleep. And then she went outside and she whistled, a loud whistle that was carried on the wind. And laborers and craftsmen came from all directions, and they began to work. And they built a bridge of fine crystal that crossed over the water, and then they etched into that crystal designs, and then they painted on those designs in colors, so that when it was finished, there was an immense and beautiful crystal bridge over the water. In the morning, Vasilisa came to the prince, and she said, "Awake, the bridge is done, and my father is on his way to inspect it." The prince got up, and he took a little broom, and he went on the bridge and began to sweep and tidy the bridge. The Sea King came, looked at the prince, and said, "Well done. You have done a good job. It is a great thing. And now that you have done it, there's something else to do." By tomorrow morning, I want you to grow and prepare a garden. In the garden, I want every kind of tree, every kind of bush that flowers. I want birds that fly between the branches and sing all the songs of the earth. And from the fruit trees, I want apples and pears that are ripe, drooping down. If you do it, it will be fine. And if you don't do it, I will have your head. When the prince left the presence of the Sea King, he began to weep. Vasilisa heard the weeping, and she came to him and said, "O prince, why are you weeping?" And he said, "What else can I do but weep? There is nothing left for me, for your father has ordered this garden, and it must be done tonight, and I cannot do it. It is impossible." And she said, "Don't fret, sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." And she put him to sleep. And then she went outside and she whistled, and the whistle was carried on the wind, and from all directions came laborers and gardeners, and they began to dig in the earth, and they planted trees, and the trees grew leaves, and the leaves grew flowers, and songbirds came, and fruit grew on them as well, until the job was done and a beautiful garden was there. And then in the morning she went to the prince and she said, "Awake, the garden is done. My father is on his way to inspect it." And the prince took a little broom, and he went and he began to sweep the paths in the garden and tidy up the branches, so that when the Sea King came, he said, "This is well done. You ought to be congratulated. And since you have accomplished this, there is nothing else except you must have one of my daughters to marry. If you can pick the same one 3 times, you can marry her. All of my daughters have the same face. They all have the same fine hair. They all have the same dress, and they are in all appearances and all ways the same. If you pick the same one 3 times, she is yours to marry. But if you should fail, I have your head." Vasilisa came to the prince and she said, "Pay attention. The first time you choose, I will move a little handkerchief. The second time you choose, I will adjust my dress. And the third time you choose, a fly will fly over my head." It happened just as she said. He chose Vasilisa the wise 3 times. The Sea King had nothing for it but to cause them to be married. At the point of the marriage, the Sea King said, "A marriage can only occur when there is a feast, and this marriage shall have a great feast." And so everyone came to the feast, and all manner of meat was put out. That is, meat from the sea, from fish, meat from the air, from fowl, and meat from those animals that run on the hoofs. And the amount of meat that was put out was the amount that it would take 100 men to eat if they ate for 24 hours a day and 7 days straight. And the king said, "This is the marriage feast, and it is all yours. It is so much yours that it has to be eaten at one sitting. Otherwise, I will have your head." The prince said, "We have with us an old man. Is he allowed to join us?" And the king said, "Why not?" An eater came forward. An eater began to eat. The first thing that he ate was those things that were served up in the large serving bowls in the center of the table. Lambs and chickens and cows and pigs and all of those things, well cooked and swimming in their gravy. He ate those things. When he finished that, he began to eat the things that the people were already eating on their plates. When he finished that, he began to eat the things that were being prepared to go into the stew pots. And when he finished that, he began to eat the animals that were running by. Having done that, he said, "This is a good feast, and it whets my appetite." The Sea King then brought out 100 barrels of liquor, and he said, "A feast is only a feast if good liquors are drunk and enjoyed. And this is a feast, and they will be enjoyed, Prince, if you drink them at one sitting. Otherwise, I will have your head." And the prince said, "Well, we have an old man with us. Can we bring him?" And the king said, "He may come forward." And they brought forward Drinker. Drinker began to drink. He started out with several barrels of dry sherry to whet the appetite. The taste of the sherry reminded him of the fragrance of red wine, and so he began to sip at 20 or 30 barrels of dry red wine. That reminded him of the taste of wine that was white and clear, and so then he began to drink at the barrels of white wine. Having finished all of those, he began to think of those kinds of liqueurs with the taste of fruits that you could drink after you have drunk other things. And he drank all of those until he had finished the entire 100 kegs. And then he said, "This has been good, and now I have a taste for beer." The Sea King saw that there was nothing to be done about this. All of the things had been accomplished and in the time that he had set, and so he said, "This marriage must be consummated." Oh, except for one thing. Really, before the consummation of a marriage, it is only right that a man and a woman enter the bath together. And since that was right, a bath was prepared for the prince and Vasilisa the wise. And the preparation went in this way. A huge cast iron tub was brought. It was raised up. Beneath that there were stacked 20 cords of wood. The wood was set on fire, and the fire burned until the cast iron turned red in all directions and was glowing hot so that no one could approach it, not even within 100 feet. And then the Sea King said, "The bath is ready for you, my dears." And the prince said, "We have an old man with us. Is it possible that he could enjoy the bath before we enter it?" And the king said, "He may come forward." And forward came Sharp Frost. He entered that boiling, scalding water, and it began to steam and settle down. And then he blew his breath into each corner of the bath so that icicles began to form around the sides. And he stayed in there till the water was a nice, even temperature. And then he exited, and the prince and Vasilisa the wise entered. They enjoyed the bath, and then they went to consummate the marriage. And after that, Vasilisa said, I think my father may be angry at you. When he gets angry, he may think of something evil to do. I think we should go. And so they got 2 horses, and they mounted the horses, and they galloped out of the kingdom of the Sea King. We'll do the third part tomorrow. So this section is about eros, I would say, an appetite. Seems like there's 3 main parts. There's the encounter with the Baba Yaga. There's the encounter with the maidens at the seashore, and there's the encounters with the Sea King. Just sit for a minute and see where you're most drawn of those 3 places. And the way you tell that is what detail is alive in your imagination. Any detail. If it's a detail having to do with the witch, the Baba Yaga, with the hut, with the chicken legs, then that's where you are. If it's one that has to do with the feather garments, the seashore, the encounter with the maidens and the stealing of the garment, then that's where you are. If it's one that has to do with the trials of the Sea King and the weeping and the help from Vasilisa, then that's where you are. Just try and catch it. It doesn't require thought. Everybody got detail? How many are in the first area with the Baba Yaga? One, all get up and over to this side. Everybody's going to have to move, so you might as well get up.
About the experience. Stories about the experience. Yeah, we'll see what's going to happen.
If your detail is involved with the spoonbills, the 12 maidens, the feather garments, and the arrangement made at the seashore, then you're in the middle. If your detail involves you with the trials at the Sea King's court, Crystal Bridge, the garden, the bath, the feast, then you're over there. You with the witch? You with the witch?
Are you going to ask questions from here?
Yeah, I'll stand here. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to go around. We're going to do it in groups. We only got a half hour. We do it in groups. Just do 3 sections. Okay, now How many are in the center section, just so we can get an idea? Okay. So that seems to be the biggest group. And then this is next. This is okay. It's just nice to get an idea where the imaginations are. We've got about a half hour, and it's not enough time to hear what everybody, why the detail has you there. Well, let's just hope that by hearing a few, we hear the sense of why different sections are. I want to propose that these are 3 places different from involvement with the sky god and the cosmological father. That these are 3 places that are all below the horizon. They're all below the bottom line. And that there's qualities in here that don't exist in the first part of the story. Remember in the first part, the 2 of the sisters and their houses just get burned up by the glance for not acting in just the right manner. And you see the difference in here. So maybe we can have like some brief statements from those that are in the area of the Baba Yaga while you're there. Maybe just say the detail and then what it is about it or something like that. What the emotion is or what the state is.
I'm somehow attracted to this monstrous, ugly old woman that has power, sort of benevolent power.
Attracted to benevolent power. Can you say what the feeling is other than attraction?
Initial kind of, horror isn't exactly right, but it's sort of fear of this fearsome creature.
Fear. Good.
Well, for me, it was just this sense of the crossroads. Are you seeking a task or skirting a task?
The question, yeah. The witch is known for asking either or questions. And they're generally a total trap. And
Yeah,
what was your feeling about that?
Feeling about it?
Yeah.
I guess I felt like, I confront myself with those questions a lot.
Okay, so you do that to yourself.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I felt like I went right into that trap, and I've heard this similar story before, but I went into I want to be seeking, but I'm sort of shirking, and I just got eaten alive,
This is very much an area of the passivity we've been talking about. The passive response, you're gone.
Yeah, the spinning house on legs, in that it seems to identify that with my own head, the world around me, and that getting it to stop so that I can enter it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. One of the signs of the appearance of the witch is things start to spin. It's also one of the motions in going down.
She asked Black White question, and what interests me is that he's perceptive enough to see that there's a third alternative and get back behind that question to the meaning.
My initial reaction to it was entering the house and just feeling like this tremendous fear. But my response was, when she said the question is, give me something to eat.
Yeah, that's right.
And I realized that I made a huge movement, because 2 years ago at the Mendocino conference, I was really stuck in the witch's territory.
What's the feeling of giving to eat?
What?
What's the feeling?
Power. It's like, I'm now have control of the situation.
Yeah.
I have control of this. I'm asking, I'm going to get something out of this now.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure about the control.
But not control.
It sounded more like a place to stand to me.
Well, it's a stance, yeah.
Well, it is a
stance.
confrontation.
But it's a holding of your own. It's a reclaiming of something.
Yeah, that's good. One of the reasons to hear similar stories over and over is to notice how we react differently.
Yeah.
That's really good.
In the image of the Baba Yaga, I got disgust for something I need.
Say it again.
Disgust for something I need.
Disgust for something you need.
Because I need her to get on, and she's critical.
Disgusted, that's good.
In the answer, there was a pause. He created a pause, and that was how he gave himself a place to stand, and that was the first thing that got me, is he's putting a pause in here.
How did he create the pause?
When he said, first I need to eat and get food and drink, and that gave him the space.
Yeah, he didn't fall right into the either or, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that passivity fits in really well, because my part of the story is when I walked in and saw the witch, and I thought, oh shit, I have to deal with a witch. I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to go easy.
The image was the eye that you described, and that spoke to me about intrusive accusation. And my response to that was cold hatred.
Cold?
Hatred.
Cold hatred, which is the other eye. The one eye is out intruding, and the other eye is the black hole someone referred to. The one eye is the intrusive hot part of the witch, and the other eye is the cold suck it away part of the witch. The image for me, by the way, come when I was a kid. There was we lived in the city, but there was one place where they didn't have buildings, which was called the lot, and it had two things. It had live rabbits that we used to try and catch, jackrabbits, and that was our experience of hunting, you know. And then it had a hut, and in the hut there lived an old man with one eye that drooped out of his thing and one blank socket. And the big deal was to go look at the old man, get scared shitless, and run after the rabbits. So to me, that old man was a witch. I mean, it doesn't matter too much what the exact sex characters are.
I was real fearful of her, the chicken legs and going into the thing and everything, but then she's right to the point. And that just totally engaged me right there. It's like, what is it? You know, no bullshit, just you're either seeking something or it's the other. She knew right what was going on, and I was, whoa. She's right there, and I was totally captured at that moment.
You were captured?
Well, I was captured by there's someone who's really there, right in front of me, knowing something. And I was engaged by that. And
is there a feeling with it?
Of taking of being able, of having to spar with that, of having the feeling of power or something with that.
Capture doesn't sound powerful.
Of the fact that I have to come back with something, not to be sucked in, or something. I don't know if that's a feeling, but like of quick movement and very, very quickly coming up with an answer now, jousting.
Yeah. Captured might be just before that. Captured to me has a more fear in it and more lack of movement in it. You know, which happens a number of times. What else over there with this hut?
I had a sense when I saw this woman of revulsion, but also I was intrigued because she wanted to help me in some way. My feeling about that was she's so repulsive, but I'm edgy about it, but I'm also hopeful that this powerful being wants to aid me in some way. But kind of thrown because I don't know what that's all about.
Real quickly, anybody associate the hut, the question, the appearance, the repulsiveness, the capturedness, the fear, the taking a stance with something right now? Personal.
Yeah, I felt sort of fear and terror and a sense of great mystery, and that I was sort of her victim. She had to tell me what to do. It was passive. My relationship now is, I'm 46, unmarried. I'm with the same woman for 3 years. She doesn't like men, and I can't make a decision about what I'm going to do.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I guess maybe I'm not in the right group, but in opposite to everybody saying being passive, I felt really active being with a witch.
Okay, and how is that in your life?
Well, since childhood, I was very attracted to old ladies somehow, even as ugly as they were.
We're all attracted to ladies. How is it in your life now? Old ladies. Okay.
Not old lady.
Yeah.
Old. It was just like the story you told. That's the way I was with in the kibbutz where I grew up, with old people. There were lots of old people around. And it was just like I used to go to their homes and just sit there and listen to their story, their wisdom. And I was, what am I now? I'm seeking. So it's not something that I know.
So you're seeking so that,
Yeah, I'm seeking that wisdom that I had in my childhood, which I don't know.
anyone else?
Well, I felt it in that as you get older, it's no different in a way than in your 20s and so on. You have to decide how much you're going to emphasize your purpose and how much you're going to be drawn into the woman's circulatory motion of some kind. And this says it very clearly that the purpose has to be there, and you have to, you're not going to get to your purpose in the first place until you go through this ugly shit with this ugly woman.
The repulsion.
Yeah, and it's on the other side of that. And then you better be clear about what she's going to say when she asks the question and so on.
Somewhere in your life now?
Yeah, right now.
You want to say anything about that?
Well, I did, but in that every man has a purpose which deals with the outer world, and if the man doesn't follow that purpose, which in my case has to do with writing, teaching, and so on, if I get pulled in too much of the area, we need to talk more about our relationship before you do more with this, then I don't get out of that house. She doesn't, yeah.
Okay.
That part in the woman just finishes it. So it's a real fork in the road.
Yeah.
And I've taken the other fork many times. I don't want to take that fork.
It says, this seems to say something very strong about food, too. The issue is food is on both sides of it. The way he gets the attention of the witch, the way he stays with his purpose is he says, I need to eat.
You also say that the proper order is.
Yeah, he has a sense of order, a
order
sense of purpose, and he knows that he needs something. He's saying, I need this or else I can't do that. That there isn't this foolish willingness, this openness to just take the question, to take the next thing. He's saying, I need this before I do that. The implication is that this terrible witch, which can kill, which can cause spinning for 20 years, all this kind of stuff, this energy responds to the knowledge of what one needs now. One of the implications.
But she senses that he's helpless. I mean, she's not going to turn him into a pig or something like that. I mean, she's...
Well, she knows, yeah, but it's more like she has rules too. She has rules too. If anybody bites at the question and said, both sides of the question are wrong. We're all trying to shirk a deed and trying to find a deed. That's why it feels the way it feels. We're all both of those. And if you take one or the other, you're gone. What he does is stay with what he needs, which changes, the question doesn't count anymore.
That's good.
Okay, how about those that, this is the group that was at the seashore or involved in that. And so what we want, if possible, is the detail, the feeling, and why that feeling is there in your life. In other words, image has the emotion with it. They come together. If you can get the emotion, then right away you know it's in your life now. Good.
I'm fairly new in my journey, so one of the reasons I'm here is to take something back.
Let's skip the preambles.
Yeah. Stealing something to help me with my journey spoke to me.
Okay.
And there's also something tied up in the sexuality of 12 maidens bathing, and I'm going to get one of them.
Okay. Good.
I wanted to get the 12. Now, I wanted to devour the 12.
Devour the 12.
Yeah.
And
I want to get them.
He's English.
I got an appetite.
Oh, you have that appetite for the 12 maidens.
Right.
How is that in your life?
I want a maiden.
What?
I want a maiden.
12 of them.
12 of them.
Okay. And how is that in your life? I mean, you're going to go out and find 12 maidens? You're probably going to go to jail after exhaustion. I mean, what is it?
No, I do want one, but...
You're going to invade India again.
Yeah.
I do want one.
Okay.
I do want one.
Yeah.
But the capacity is the capacity for 12.
Okay, but devour is not in the story. It's an exchange that occurs.
Yeah. Well, take one.
Take one.
Yeah.
Actually, what he takes is the garment of feathers.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't get it that way.
was only important to me, the garment, taking the garment of feathers.
Okay, okay. So he wants a maiden and has a devouring appetite.
Right. 12 women excited me, just.
12 women.
But then all of a sudden, they're all alike.
Yeah.
And now I'm just, it's like, they end up being all alike. They're all alike. And I want some to be
He's in Sioux Falls, he's not in the story.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing it as all affairs are alike.
The whole fantasy of these beautiful creatures coming down out of the water sort of caught me immediately. And the sort of the ivory bodies, sort of saw that. But I realized, the feeling of it is I realized that I sort of got caught again. It's like I've spent my life sort of searching after those beautiful figures. And I feel a little bit angry at myself that I got caught again. Sort of like
Okay, and is that in your life now? Yeah. There's something like that going on?
Well,
or that's the...
There's something like that, but I have to sort of evaluate whether I'm caught in that or I'm sort of moved on to the other aspects. So I'm sort of caught between the two right now.
The beauty is intended. I mean, it's intended to catch.
I was caught by the beauty also, the idea of these maidens. There was also something about really mischievous about stealing their clothes and something about stealing beauty or something that way, being mischievous. And I see that in my own life in the sense I kind of have to outsmart my everyday humdrum life in order to touch more beauty or something like that.
Okay, I like that outsmart. Back there.
After making the deal with Vasilisa, you returned the garment in exchange for some talk with the Sea King.
I can't hear you.
After making the deal with Vasilisa to exchange the garment for some favor to speak with the Sea King, I felt a sense of wonder at discovery in my own life, that I'm uncovering something.
Uncovering something. Okay.
I also had attachment to the erotic aspects of watching women undress.
Yeah.
From a removed place.
From some distance, yeah.
And also the stealth of moving toward the feathers. I have an affinity with feathers anyway, but the word you used was steal into the garment.
Yeah, so we got stealth. There's the erotic thing, and then there's stealth. That's consistent. Let's hear something else if there is something else.
What fascinated me was not just the beauty of the women that came down and dropped off their garments and stuff, but the fact that the garments were a creature that flies, for one thing, and also spoonbills that sift and find their nourishment from the muck that's at the bottom of the water.
Okay. If remember the first part of the story with the eagle, and just follow the feathers. And Vasilisa the wise, it's almost as if the eagle has turned into the spoonbill. And it's gone from the high-soaring, critical eye, powerful wing to the pushing into the muck. It's also multiplied. It's not the one single vision and one single bird. It's multiplied, and it's come down, and there is now water with the air. It's a water bird. It's changed gender. And it is capable of being contacted, and exchange can occur. It also, the feathers now come off.
I was attracted to Vasilisa. I don't think all the maidens were the same, but Vasilisa was unique. And I think for me, that's the strive for the unique, perfect woman. And Vasilisa was the wise and the leader, and that's what attracted me.
Okay. You saw that as perfect.
Well, that's what it represented.
And how would that be like in your life? Something that...
Well, I'm looking for a perfect woman now, a perfect relationship.
And you saw that as the perfect...
Well, I'm tired of being nice, and now I want to steal. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Okay. Okay, anything other than steal, we got to move.
Power to change form.
Okay? Just say it in one phrase like that. One phrase.
Giving back the cloak.
Giving back.
I got a hesitation in that.
Hesitation on giving it back. I like that. That's a drama in there. You got it. She can't leave. Just think about marriage in that one.
Lust and hunger for beauty.
Lust and hunger for beauty.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. The deal thing is different. It's come in, there's an exchange. And the exchange is for something in the future. It requires some kind of a faith and a vision. And so it's an exchange, it's a connectedness. It's different from the flight of the eagle. The earth is damp too. It says when they hit the damp earth is when the cloaks come off. I think we got to move unless you can make it that big.
Theft without shame.
Theft without shame.
To be in two realms. To be able to move.
Be in two realms.
Fear of getting caught watching the rest.
Fear of getting hot watching them. Caught. That's a good fear. The whole mythology of getting caught doing that. Okay, so let's, now the next movement, the implication is if you can get past the old hag, you can get to the maiden. There you can make a deal which throws you into the next thing, which is face to face with a different kind of king. This is the sea king, and it doesn't say that, but the implication is that the movement has been down deep into the water. And keep them real short like that.
To fly over her head, a hint of corruption. Also, only an eagle could see something that small over her head to indicate where she is. And the eye from the eagle now is multifaceted. It's a many-faceted eye.
I feel like I want to dive into the water. I want to just devour. I want to devour food. I want to drink. I want to just devour the world. I feel that in relation to my wife. I just feel like I want to devour her. I want to eat her. I want to lick her. I just want to feel a passion for her.
Well, that's a lot different from what you said the other night. That sounds good to me. See, the repulsion is there. If we can get past the repulsion, that view, then this apparently becomes possible. Good.
The thing that got me was striking a deal with a woman and still having the passion to drink 100 barrels of wine.
Still have it. It may be the source of it.
The king and the crown. The king was the voice of my father saying, "Don't try that because I'll have your head." The crown was like his denial, or his...
What's the feeling of it?
The feeling is, what ends up happening is passivity. I'm not even going to try because I'm going to lose my fucking head.
Good point.
Like, I had it right where he had to make the crystal bridge.
Yeah.
And he starts crying.
Yeah.
And for me, in my life, it's like I've come that far, and all of a sudden, shit, there's another impossible task, and I can't see the way out.
Okay. Everybody feel that? Yeah. You got all through this shit, and you think, now I'm going to get it, and what you get is, now you got to do this, and you got to do it tonight. And not only that, it's impossible, just in case you were uncertain.
Two things for me is the tremendous appetite that is there. I mean, for me in my life, right now, my appetite is, my strength is there. And at the end, when she goes off on the horses with the man, that's a very powerful thing for me.
That feels powerful, they're going on the horse.
That is the end, that is the, you went through all this stuff and that's what you do.
Okay, stay with that.
The detail was the changing of the water from cold to hot, and I was just involved in a conversation where I was trying to change something from cold to hot. Excuse me, got it backwards.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the idea is the effort. I hope I can make it.
Okay.
The feeling of being both in this delicious pleasure and terrorizing fear, and having to choose among the 12 maidens and potentially failing and getting my head.
Okay. Notice the difference in this section, that by the time it gets here, it becomes choosing amongst those 12. There's some time over here to delight in all 12. To get through this one, that choice has to be made 3 times in a row. It's repetition. It's not uniqueness, newness.
Outwitting the king involves, for me, standing up against male authority, which is both threatening and exciting, but is relevant to my own life and coming to feel that I'm equal to other men and can challenge them, and sometimes win.
Okay, but the prince doesn't challenge. in this section.
But he meets all the tests. He's giving these impossible challenges, and he shrewdly overcomes.
Shrewd, so you're the shrewd feeling.
Well, it's shrewd, but it's also strong. It's persistent.
There seems to be a rather large lack of strength in the normal sense. His strengths at this point are weeping and sleeping. Those are his two main modes.
Well, he listens
He
to
listens.
her.
He listens to the king and her. He accepts, he listens, he accepts, he weeps, and he sleeps. This is a new thing.
He listens to the story or not, that's what I got.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's got these sensual helpers too.
Yeah.
Eater, the drinkers.
Okay. Okay. Many appetites and many helpers.
A lot of excitement about being told to use crystal to build a bridge, and going someplace where I have to go and using crystal to make the vehicle, and then being told that my head will be gone if I don't do it, which is right where I am in my life, making this move where I have to leave stuff behind that I want to leave behind, and some fear with that.
And fear about leaving behind.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Fear about the unknown.
Fear of the unknown.
The combination of the challenge, the despair, and the ultimate accomplishment or success.
And for me, it's the moment when he walks onto the crystal bridge with the goddamn broom. I mean, he's somehow owning this accomplishment in a way that's, that's exactly the way my life is. I get into this trouble, I despair I'm never going to be able to do it. Somehow or another, I fall into the shit house and come out smelling like a rose, and then I stand up there as if I did the damn thing.
We got very little time. Good.
Yeah, I met a wonderful woman, and her father has the same birthday as me, and he hated me, and he put up all these tests that I failed. And I identified very much with it, and I wish I had an old man to help me out.
Thank you. We're going to have to wrap it up, so I want to wrap it up with that comment a bit. What's changed, one of the changes is the movement from the orderly view from way up on high to this series of old men that are down underneath and that have these incredible appetites. The step right between the exchange with the maiden, the next thing, that leads to, it's as if the things in the story, one thing leads to another. Getting through that leads to meeting these companions, these interior capacities or appetites, which then get us through the tests. It's not the I that does it. Even the sweeping thing is like an indication that the activity that's going on is very simple, and it's bent over and it's looking down and it's like that. There's this different posture. That's the whole thing. And I want to tie it to two things. The series of old men under the ground, the business of ancestors and the businesses of the dark gods, that business, those deep dark appetites. It seems to me that it's saying that there comes a time when the logos power, especially when it's been carried by the father, leaves the son in the situation where he has to go down and get in touch with these before the actual father, into the ancestral appetites, and then actually even a little deeper than that. When you get to the cold frost character going into the hot water, that's a real twist there. That's down into the coldness of the earth. The first two appetites are kind of hot, and then the next one is a cold appetite that there requires this connectedness with the maiden energy and with these old men, these old parts, and that one of them is cold. That just hot passion isn't going to do it. That there's a coldness that's required at a certain point, or one gets burned by their own heat.
Yeah, another interesting thing about that is that they're with him
for a good deal of the journey. They have these immense appetites, but it's like held and saved just for the right time.
They're companions. They're with them. It's contained.
I got a thing I'd like to add if I could.
Okay. Yeah, well, please do it, and then we're... Do it.
So I think things Michael said were wonderful about this story. But I want to do something here just in this area of these people talking here. The important detail back here is the purpose that he has. He walks along, he finds a path, he goes in, he has a purpose that he wants to accomplish. That's the only way he gets through that woman, the negative stuff in the woman. When you come over here and you say, I feel erotic attachment to these women who are taking off their clothes, I really like that, you're not in this part of the story. You're way the hell back there. Because these people are not women, they're not even remotely resembling women. This is this is your touch with something from the other world, something divine. It's like you had an accident in the hospital. You're lying in the hospital. That's when you find the little cloak. You got to make a deal with whatever caused that accident that makes you lying there in the hospital. This is not erotic. It's got nothing to do with the sexual at all. So therefore, if you don't understand that, when you hear the story, your imagination is uneducated. You're not able to follow. You're getting your sexual stuff mixed up in the wrong place. And that's going to block you from understanding when the divine does come to you. Am I making that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So all of these people are back over there somewhere. Your imaginations are not yet ingenious enough. That's my time.
I was very close to the same thing. That the crucial thing that makes it work, the whole story work, is that the witch gives him the information how to deal with that maiden. With the spoonbill. That's what she tells him, and the maiden then takes over and tells him how to do everything else. Now his job is a very simple job, which is the job. It's very similar to what you said. How to recognize the difference between her in her feathers and her in her human body. And they're two different things that merge. And he has to be able to see the body in the feathers, the body without the feathers, and give back the feathers. And not have her as a body at that point. But to keep, she's a bird. She's a feathered winged thing. And and that distinction, if he doesn't get that, then he didn't get her message, and he couldn't do any of the rest of it. So she's really the crucial, the understanding of that figure, whom Jung calls anima, is absolutely crucial to the rest, it seems to me, in the rest of the story.
No, the story is called Vasilisa the Wise and the Sea King. So, you know, it says that the pivot of the story is on Vasilisa the Wise. And I agree with what both Robert and Jim are saying. Another way to look at the problem, the issue of sexuality and spirituality, is that, and it does have to do with education. There's a brutish, there's the brute that's in the sexuality. And it's not only the brute, but that's usually where we encounter it. That's where it starts. And then there is this business of moving it up or moving it on. The only thing I'm afraid of is locking people out of the story. I mean, I trust that people get in where they get in. I don't trust that they can say why they're in, but I trust that they get in where they get in. And I also...
I think they should be kicked out.
I know you do. But that's because you're there and they're on this side of you or something.
Michael, I don't understand what you meant when you said it's inflation at the end of the story.
The whole thing of everything we said is inflated. It's a detail in a story and we go, whew.
No, because the story is an archetypal thing, and anytime you are identified with any, you're always identified with one or another position somewhere, so you're caught by an image. And that's what you think and feel and see. And at that moment, you're inflated because you don't realize that's where you are. The value of the story is it tells you where you are in the story. And you know, you're in the middle of a fight with your father or your wife or whatever. You don't know where you are in the story. You don't realize it. But you're in a story somehow.
Yeah. Okay, now, I guess what I want to do is try to say that both things are true. None of us can hold any of the points in this story exactly really. No one's been through the whole thing consciously. That's the nature of the story. It's been held by many, many people. There's too much in it to have been through consciously. At the same time, each of us somehow can find a connection to images in a story, and that has to be had too. Even in its rawness, even in its wrongness. That connectedness is extremely valuable. And then it's important to know that it's not complete. That being here doesn't mean that now I've got the thing about maidens figured out, because it doesn't work that way. All of a sudden the maidens will come from a different direction, or they'll put on a different garment. I just don't want to lose that connectedness of the point, because to me it's valid, and it's the eros of it. This whole second part is very attractive over here because of all the appetite that we've been talking about. And I think this part is attractive because Jim just finished talking about erotics. So the imagination is tipped towards erotics. Even cocks and cunts.
There's a wild thing said, though, in this story that I have never really heard before, and if we follow it through from this purpose thing, then none of these things are going to happen until the man knows his purpose well and is not going to give in to a woman in the area of not holding it. So all of these things happen after that. Then there's the strangest thing, that when you come here and you're able to concentrate your attention on something completely from the other world, something completely non-material, like a soul almost, like a visitor, like a guardian angel coming to you from the other world to help you with your life. And when you can see that, at that point then, the vast appetites are useful and not destructive. That's a wild idea. That's wild. That the wonderful appetite for life happens after this thing, not before.
She even wants him to travel with his appetites.
She, the witch, the Baba Yaga, the blocking energy says when you meet them, you take them with you. They'll be useful.
That's right.
Up until then, they may not have been useful.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. They become obsessive habits and so on. It's now not an obsession. It's now the ability to. It's desire.
It's like an old Zen priest who laughs all the time, and he said he's happy.
Exactly. And it's not that anybody's there.
Yeah.
But the imagination sure can go there real fast, and even one taste of a little bit of that wine is worthwhile.
That's right.
You know, there's also an ebb and flow to this thing. I don't know that that's the beginning of the story necessarily. I met this woman who was like an angel to me, who's helping me deal with all kinds of things that my whole life is being turned upside down and inside out, and it seems like that's where I am over here with all this help and with all kinds of stuff. People want my head for it. And then, more recently, my wife finds out about this relationship, and she asks me that question. What are you going to do about it? Is it me, or is it her? You know, and so then I'm back in the beginning of the story.
Ask for food, ask for food.
So, you know, I don't think the story starts there. I think it starts...
We'll discuss it.
Yeah. You know, there's that business of the fractured, broken parts of us are spread throughout the story, and that's the point of the story. That's good. And then all we're doing is saying which part is hitting you now, and it doesn't open to salvation. It opens just to recognizing that that's the story we're in.
If we heard it again tomorrow, we might be in a different place.
Yeah, it does change. One of the major things in it, though, is the connectedness to all these parts. The erotics of the appetites, to me. It becomes erotic when it becomes I'll eat anything, whether it's living, dead, or otherwise. That has tremendous connectedness to life in it. That's
and power.
And power, that's an appetite.
Here's where the power is in the appetite. His power grows as the prince. His power grows through traveling with his appetites.
Traveling with his appetite and then listening to the feminine presence. He listens. He has rested a lot. He's weeped a lot, and he's slept, and his appetite's coming from that too. He's been down in the dreams. He's been in his grief, and a tremendous appetite comes out of that.
Isn't that listening to the feminine and connection with the feminine then also connected to where some of the beauty comes in?
Yeah.
You build a beautiful crystal bridge and a beautiful garden.
Yeah. One of the ways we say that is the soul. It's listening to the soul, and And the soul's connectedness to the world builds the bridges and the gardens.
That's right.
Notice that the gardens have come back in and the animals have come back in. They're out of the box, so to speak. They're out of the coffer or the coffin.
And now
It's no longer the death and the animal realm. It's like the soul garden.
Thank you for the story, Michael.
Thank you for...